What's up, Rockstars? Welcome to another video. I have a top 10 list here for you. The top 10 things I wish I knew before I got into the board game hobby. I have some regrets, perhaps. Okay, you'll look down below and count because you guys are smart and can count. There's 12 items here, so sue me. I gave you 2 more extra. Consider them a bonus. All right, let's see. First of all, storage. Look at this. Look at this. This is just the stuff I'm getting rid of, okay? Because my shelves are over full. They're full again. This is just extra. Guys, they take up so much space. Because they're a physical game, right? And you buy it and then you get all the different expansions and they all fit differently or weird. They don't condense well or they're like shipped weird. And so they have like a whole bunch of empty space in them and or all the boxes are made to be the same height, which is both good and bad because it's good because it looks good and it's bad because it takes up more space than it needs to. And look, it's a mess. Storage is a premium, and anybody who has been in the board game hobby for, let's say, maybe a year plus, tends to run into this issue where suddenly you realize that the space you have in your home is not the space needed to be able to buy every board game and store it that you wish you could have. So, yeah, storage. You think about that ahead of time. There's a lot needed. A lot. Now, it might surprise you, but when you have this many board games and then huge shelves behind me full of board games as well, and then more over here, they're expensive. This is an expensive hobby. Now, you can go buy pretty cheap, but pretty cheap is still actually fairly expensive because all that means is you're buying more of the cheap ones than a fewer of the more expensive ones, typically. And if you have a favorite game and you love it and you want to pimp it out, you can spend like crazy. You can get like I've seen things of like Star Wars Rebellion where they have like handcrafted like 3D planets that you can do and stuff like that. If you want to spend $700 on that, by all means. Or completely 3D maps for Nemesis and stuff like that. You can go crazy. All painted, all 3D, everything upgraded, metal coins, all that kind of stuff. And that is even if it's on top of something that's already expensive. It's a very expensive hobby. And with shipping, with the size that they are, with the weight that they can be, with the thousands of cards and all that kind of stuff, it can get pricey. And if you get addicted to a collectible card game, I'm sure your bank account will not be happy. All right, another one that's kind of an issue. This is for crowdfunded mostly, but the delays. Oh my goodness. When you first get into Kickstarter or first get into GameFound or even BackerKit or something like that, when you're fresh-faced and new, you're like, oh man, this delivers in a year and look, they already have this prototype getting reviewed and this and that, and I'll be getting this next year. That's awesome. Not realizing, first of all, how long that year actually feels, where a year goes by and you forget you even backed it sometimes. And you're like, wait, what game is coming from France? Which one is that? Right? So you get that kind of thing. But then the delays, and suddenly 1 year turned into 2.5, which turns into 5, which turns into who knows when. The delays suck. So this is more for crowdfunding, but it does really, it's a big bummer. But I've even bought stuff on eBay and all that, and I tend to browse stuff that's like from Poland and whatnot. And sure enough, they send out like a rowboat or a raft that just needs to catch the right wind to get here because it takes forever. Now, the next one is kind of interesting, but it's actually something I think is you really need to think about, and that's hosting game night. You see, when you actually want to play a board game, you invite people over, or even if it's just your family. Either way, you got to plan kind of an evening. I mean, normally a weekend, maybe a late on a weekday. It just depends on when people are available. But hosting that means that you need to figure out food. It means that you need to figure out drinks. It means that you need to figure out where it's going to be at and the time and deal with kids if you need to do that and manage that and all this other kind of stuff. When it comes to actually hosting a game night, I think a lot of people are invited to one, but don't realize what it might take to really host one well. When dedicating the time, when not having to rush, stuff like that, right? But you need the space, you need the time, you need the preparations. There's a little bit of logistics involved there. Even parking at times can be difficult. Just depends on how many people are coming over, when you live, stuff like that. Starting it too late and then it's, droning on into the early morning and stuff like that, it can happen and it sucks. So, hosting game night is actually a lot more work than you might think. Now, this kind of goes along with it, but lighting is very important. I feel like most people, unless you're playing on your kitchen table, which a lot of people do, because normally that has some pretty good lighting above it. But if you are just in a game room with some normal lighting, like a normal room lighting, it's not like this, okay? This is a whole bunch of more professional lighting several hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of lighting actually in here. And most people don't have that. And so you can get it to where everything just seems kind of dark. You're playing this game, maybe it's a horror game, Deep Madness or something like that, or anything like that, Mansions of Madness even. And you're going through and you're having to read the card, but you're in this dimly lit game room. I've been to a few of those, and it can kind of suck. You need to think about lighting if you're going to get into this hobby and really want to play, especially if you are a elderly person, or if you game with people that also might have some failing eyes. Sometimes the writing on these cards and these components are small enough. Anyway, put that in a dimly lit room, and it can get kind of a chore to actually play. And you're picking up each piece just to be able to, read it and stuff like that. Figure out some lighting, add some beforehand if you can, or somehow get it there. And like right now I have stuff actually mounted on my ceiling to help with the lighting. But before that it was all tripods and stuff like that. But whatever you need to do, just make sure the lighting's good. It'll help play the game a lot smoother, trust me. All right, here's one. I hate to break it to you, but if you're new to board games and you look at a board game, you're like, oh, this one looks cool. And you learn about, it only takes 40 minutes to 60 minutes to play. It's a lie. Always it's a lie. If there is a game that truthfully said how long it takes to play, especially first time, let me know in the comments below. I would love to know who's not lying about that, because, dear Lord, any game that says 60 minutes, try 3 hours. That's going to be that game session. Between looking up rules and getting people situated, and Bob's turn is here, but he's going to the bathroom, and Billy went and made a sandwich, and the other person's on the phone with their wife, or whatever it might be. It just ends up taking longer, whether you're looking up rules or not. Now, a lot of times, I think they're actually trying to be truthful for them, the game designer, because they've played it so many times, right? And if you play a game enough times, and you're good at dedicating that time, you can maybe hit the time that it says on the box. But otherwise, disregard that completely, and just know that you should probably be putting at least twice as much time into it when it comes to dedicating the time for it. Don't be fooled by that. There are games that are quick and easy to play. Sometimes the really quick ones are a little bit more accurate, but anything that says like 45 plus minutes, guaranteed hour and a half minimum. Pretty much guaranteed. That's just going to happen. All right, this kind of goes along with hosting and playing and all that, but realize the table space that these games can take up, especially when it comes to what table do you have and what games can you play on that? Because you might be interested in games that you cannot play on that, and suddenly you're getting little coffee tables out, or you're doing this, or TV tray dinners, or whatever it is. You put it on the island. I've played games on my island before because I didn't have a table big enough for them, but I liked the game, and that is a legit thing. Some of these games can take easily more than a dining room table. Now, you can sometimes condense and cramp things in, but when you do that, it becomes a big chore to actually play, because your equipment cards are next to their equipment cards. You get them all mixed up and stuff like that. It's all cramped, and just realize what actual flat surface you have to play on, and then get games according to that. Don't be like one of those tank buster fish, right? Where you get the fish in the aquarium, put him in a little 20-gallon, and suddenly he needs a 55-gallon because his darn thing keeps growing. You don't want one of those. Okay, let's talk about campaign games. Look, campaign games are awesome. They're really cool, but know your gaming group here. I have another thing on gaming groups in just a moment, but for this one, just realize that how many times do you tend to play board games? How many times do you tend to play the same board game? This game says it has 50 missions in it. Will you play that game 50 times? Have you played any game 50 times? Especially when it takes that long. How is its save system? Do you have to leave it set up? Does it set up quick? Or do you have to pack it all up and save them in little baggies and write, this is my equipment cards, stuff like that in it? Look, campaign games are a dedication. And if you don't have a consistent game group, if you're not sure, don't waste your money unless you're fine buying it just for a few sessions. And if you get your enjoyment out of that, by all means, spend your money how you wish. But if you think you're going to be completing a whole bunch of campaign games, especially if you don't really have a solid game like routine and group going, best of luck to you is all I have to say. All right, the next one is an important lesson I learned the hard way. And some of it is in these boxes right here. But realize your personal preference and your gaming group's preferences might be different. In other words, there might be a game that you think looks great, that it looks super fun to you. But if your typical gaming group would not like that, do not buy it. unless you plan on soloing it. Because invariably, you're going to buy it because, oh, it looks cool, guys, and then nobody wants to play it. Or they'll play it once to make you happy, then never suggest it again or never pick it again. Buy what your gaming group will play that you also like, not just every single game that you like that your gaming group might not. So that's kind of my situation. I tend to like more games than the people that I play games with typically like. There's certain games and genres that I'll have fun playing, but definitely will never get picked with my main gaming group, which is my family. So I just try and buy accordingly, because what's the use of having a game that nobody picks? It's just a waste of money, a waste of space. Again, these things are expensive and they take up a lot of storage. I said that already. So just keep that in mind and keep that kind of in your head. This looks cool, but would my gaming group like it? And guess what? Ask them. They'll tell you. Maybe. Okay, pro tip here, but this certainly helps. I have some games that I like to play, but they take up a long time. They take up a lot of time to set up, right? And so one of the best things I've done is actually establish what game is going to be played in the future, whether it's later that day or whatever, and then set it up ahead of time so that by the time that slot is done and everybody has, okay, I can now go play, it's already set up and ready to go. And I've had this happen where whole gaming sessions are ruined because we wanted to play a game, we picked it, and then we spent most of the time setting up the game. And then dinner arrives and stuff like that. And we end up never even playing or having the time to. Or we start and don't finish. And that's a huge bummer. Sometimes it takes a while to get everybody's itinerary in order and available to come over. And then to not even finish a game kind of sucks. So definitely, if you can, set up ahead of time. It helps a ton. All right, last one, but something that you should take a look at. If nothing else, do your research. You should be doing that anyway. Before you drop $300 on a game at your gaming store, or $120, or whatever it is, $90, it doesn't matter. Value your money and your time and do a little bit of research. Maybe that means reading reviews, but what I'm talking about here specifically is check to see what people are saying about the expansions. Maybe you could ask on Reddit or a Facebook group or even at your local gaming store and see what people say about that. They often know a lot about the board games that they sell. Imagine that. But either way, go ahead and figure out, because sometimes some expansions seem kind of required. For instance, I mentioned Star Wars Rebellion. It's a favorite game of mine, but most people will tell you you need the expansion to actually make it good or make it better because the combat improves a lot with it. There are games where, for whatever reason, a wide variety of them, many reasons could be this, but it's almost like if you buy that game, buy it with this expansion and you'll actually enjoy it or have a better time or whatever. It would be unfortunate for you to buy the core box thinking that that's going to be good enough. You have a bad experience with it and then you write off the entire game because you're essentially playing the wrong version. Or better yet, even check the version. Speaking of Star Wars Rebellion again, it supports 2 to 4 players. However, don't ever play that 3-player or 4-player. All it is a 2-player game where you're doing less. You just divide up what you're doing. So you do part of the game and they do the other part of the game. It's not really a true 2 to 4 player. It's really a 2-player game that if you want, you can have somebody else manage part of the stuff you would normally be having fun with. So just do your research on this and make sure that you're not just following the box and you're not just assuming something that maybe you shouldn't. Guys, that's it. That's all I had. That's 12 different things that I have learned the hard way, and I wish I had been warned about before. I think it would have guided my purchasing decisions a little bit differently, especially early on. Let me know if you have any more than these 12, or if you agree or disagree with any of them. I'd love to hear in the comments below. You guys know I'm always down there reading and responding, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already to catch more reviews, unboxings, news, opinion, top 10 lists, all of that coming for you guys. So stay tuned. Take care. Bye, guys.